Good evening. I'm very happy to be here to introduce both my very good friends, Saloni and Lekha, who need very little introduction to all of you here. And before we start, I'd like to thank um, uh, Ravi Mariwala for this very lovely jazz that we've been listening to and that will continue through the evening. So let me introduce. Do the formal introductions that we don't really need. But for Lekha, Lekha was born in 1950 and she is one of most India's well known collectors. She's been instrumental in building uh, the art appreciation for the contemporary artists that we know. So this was a side that I'm giving you. So Lekha moved to Delhi in 1971, and in 1982 she started getting interested in art and she met Aman Nath, who is a hotelier and art collector, one of the owners of the Nimrana. And he actually took Lekha around to meet artists, to meet various museum people, to see different collections, and introduced her to the art world. And this actually got Lekha on her collecting. On her collecting journey, and when she started with what we know as the progressives today. And in 1996, when her son Anupam came back from England, he introduced her to all the contemporary artists who were his contemporaries, people like Subodh and Bharti and all of them. And Lekha, of course, initially was a little bit surprised with the videos and all the new installations, but eventually it became very much. Oh my, sorry. I know them so well that I may be giving away so much. So then in 2008, when they realized that they had something that they were enjoying, they started the Devi Art Foundation, and until date they've done about 24 shows. Along the way, Lekha got interested in textiles, and she and her friend uh, Karuna Goenka started a business called Charkha, where they would make men's kurtas in khadi, and that was the beginning of, uh, I think, her complete involvement with textiles. And then she began to collect, and every time she saw something, she would go to her very good friend Martan Singh and ask his opinion. And the collection obviously grew because she's done 4 or 5 fantastic shows in the last couple of years in Delhi, which were curated by Mayank, who's sitting here. And now she also revived the 17th century Indian brocades and Ottoman silks, along with another very important person, uh, Rahul Jain from Varanasi, and the late Suresh Neotia, late Martan Singh, and Lekha together formed a trust which was called Textile Art of India to support Rahul's weaving ventures. And this allowed Rekha to do one of the first important exhibitions in 1997, which was called Meenakar. And then later on, she did Prakashi in 2018, which were both at the National Museum in Delhi. And the recent shows that she collected were in collaboration with the Crafts Museum in Delhi, which were curated by Mayank Mansingh Kaul, again, who I don't know whether anybody even needs an introduction to Mayank here. So that is Lekha, and thank you, Lekha, for being here this evening. And so on to Saloni. Both of them are collectors who are different and yet similar because they both are very passionate. And Saloni's background is she worked in corporate jobs like Times of India, etc., before coming to work in Oceans, and where it was her first introduction to art, and she started collecting at that point. She was born in Bombay in 1979, where she started her schooling and then moved to Delhi. And when she moved to Delhi, her exposure to textiles was obviously a lot more. She graduated in Xavier's here in Bombay, and then went to the London School of Economics for her higher studies. She did two master's degrees in Indian art and aesthetics and art criticism from Yana Pravaha under Dr. Rashmi Poddar. And when she started as a child, she learned classical music and Bharatanatyam. She learned classical music from Shubha Mugdal and learned Bharatanatyam. And this was all the beginning of this entire cultural indoctrination, which obviously you can see in the collection today. And it was her job in Oceans that then led her to the art collecting journey. So in 2004, Saloni started Space 118. So this is a very important turning point for her because she started doing residencies, and she only told me this afternoon that she had to get Bose to coerce her dad into to allowing her to use this lovely space that we're at. And she did artist residencies for many years, and now does a program of supporting artists. And so she built a large collection. And the last show that she did, which was the photography show curated by Amit Jain, was her own personal collection of photography. And today, what we are seeing is her own collection of contemporary art, where artists have used fiber and textiles in their work. And we've divided it into five sections. And all of you've got the catalog and have seen the different sections that we've done. So over to you both ladies. So let's start the conversation. So tell us how your journey as collectors began for contemporary art. How did your journey as contemporary art collectors start? And what is it that sparked your interest? So, Lekha.
Sharan, my dear, you already told half the story. So I don't know where to start from.
I'm sorry. So,
Yeah. So as you had mentioned that, in the 1980s, I was privileged to have met Aman Nath, who did introduce me to quite a few artists. And it was then my privilege that I could become friends with them because, things were very simple. You could literally walk into their studios and they would be very happy to show you around. And this is the time what was the artists who are now called progressive artists. Um, there came a point where you always when you slowly you start to buy slowly, but then I think it just becomes a passion and then becomes an obsession. And very soon your walls are full, your stores are full, you take go downs, they get full, and you don't know what more to do with all of this stuff that you have collected. So I decided that I would not buy any more art. For me, that was a full stop. But came my son, Anupam, in 1996 from studying abroad. And we had just moved into a new home. It was a contemporary building, so it lent itself to contemporary art as well. And he met Bharti Kher, uh, became friends with her, and which led to a completely different journey because then, of course, he met Subodh Gupta, Mithu Sen, and many other people. And uh, because thought to myself that I would just stop buying any more art. I said, I'm not going to exhibitions, I'm not seeing anything anymore. But slowly he sort of encouraged me to start coming to exhibitions and start seeing the works. At first, they were quite different because we people were not used to video art, installation art, and things like that. And I really didn't take to it much, but it took a little while. And I also got into the swing of things and started visiting exhibitions with him. And that's how the journey for contemporary art started. And because this was a period when I think contemporary art all around Asia was literally in its nascent stage, that artists would introduce us to contemporary artists in different countries, especially South Asian countries. And we started to visit all our neighboring countries and started to buy art from these countries, which is Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Central Asia, and Iran. Um, that became the core of our contemporary art collection. But I just must tell you one more thing that in the 1990s, I, I used to visit the Crafts Museum quite often. And every month at the Crafts Museum, they used to change the artists and the practitioners and craftsmen. So they really did get master craftspeople, at that particular point of time. It's not like what it is today. Uh, so we got to see a lot of these arts, the arts from what these people were making. Uh, Obviously, they were desperate to sell because they had no market. And they, I think, still have a very, very small market for what they produce. Uh, and I started to buy from them, and just to put things in perspective, those were times you could buy a Jangar Singh Shyam for 500 rupees. So that was my collecting start of my collecting journey. Um, Much as I want to stop, I don't seem to be able to stop. But yeah, that's really been the start. Maybe Saloni takes over now.
Saloni, you have to hold it
Yeah,
closer.
mine was, I mean, I was exposed to, as Sharan said, classical arts at a very young age. I was a trained Bharatnatyam dancer, and in school, Shubha Mudgal taught us music. So I was a trained classical, I used to play the harmonium and the tanpura. Then came my holidays in Calcutta, where my mother's from, and a large part of my love for textiles comes from her, which I didn't know subconsciously. But when I was in Calcutta, when we would go for our holidays, my mama would take me to all the galleries there, which is Gallery 88, the mother gallery of Project 88, Chitrakoot, and many others, Birla Academy, and also to all the Park Street auction houses. So I think I was not just like I think I was trained to look at and also architecture of Calcutta, which is absolutely beautiful because it was all the British architecture. So he exposed me to all that, and so did my mom. And then I moved to Delhi, where we see a lot more. And then I moved to Bombay, and I feel when I worked at Oceans, I actually understood that this is something you can buy. And that's where the conversion happened when I started working at Times of India. Whatever I earned, I started buying. And as Lekha said, it's a passion that became an obsession. Then for me, became a profession. But yeah, those were the early things. But I feel I was always a collector because more than art, when I was young, I was collecting textiles. I was collecting coins and stamps, and I have a large coin and stamp collection through my teenage years and in my 20s, which I stopped once art took over. So yeah, it's different journeys.
So when did you decide to share your collections publicly, and what prompted this need to share the collections? Why don't you start, Lekha?
So as I mentioned to you that we had a home which we just moved into in 96 or 1996 or 1998, one of those years. Anupam had just come back, and he suggested that that we really have more contemporary art than the progressives or whatever else we would call those artists by now, um, because the house was quite contemporary. And it was also a time in 1991 when the Indian economy was started to open. Slowly after that, many people would come to India, collectors, directors, uh, artists, gallerists, and all kinds of critics, and all kinds of people. As when galleries do a show, they do one show, and all this stuff is whatever is left is packed and put away in storage. So if anybody did want to see contemporary art in India, um, gallerists, artists would direct them to our home. And we used to host a lot of people all the time. And after a little while, we just realized that if so many people are coming through the house, then obviously there's something important. And if it is important, then why should this be a privilege for just a few? Slowly we got into the idea of how do we make this public. So we certainly didn't want to make a museum, and I thought foundation was a very good way that we could sort of do shows and do it publicly and uh, throw the shows open. I mean, obviously to a larger audience. So that's how we started. Devi Art Foundation was conceived in 2005. The first show was 2008. Uh, this was in a office building which my husband had, Ranjan, and there was a lot of space that was available. So we said we'll start there. The first show, instead of doing all the big works that we had in our collection, we got a very young curator who was all of 26 years old, called Diksha Nath, and she created a show which was called Still and Moving Images, which was all about just video art and photography. So since then, as you said, we've done about 24 shows. Most of the shows we do are with different curators. Uh, Mayank has, of course, done 5 shows with us, 4 or 5 shows. But we've had people right from when there was a semester that the JNU students were being taught about curation. We opened our collection to them and said that it would be good that the students could learn uh, a practical can have a practical course. So they did the curation, and their faculty, of course, wrote the essays and things like that. We have had artists, publishers, critics, all kinds of people who have been curating our shows. So each show is the collection might be the same, but the storyline is completely different because they all show each one brings in their own story.
Absolutely, yes. I've seen many of the shows and I always appreciated them. So, Saloni, what prompted you?
So, we documented the collection only in the pandemic, and that was, when I actually had time, and I got a team together, and we put it on Art Logic, etc., and realized, oh my God, I can finally see what all I've bought over a period of time, because otherwise it was just an Excel sheet or taken out for the sake of restoration, cleaning, dusting, or looking at the work if it has foxing marks, etc. I have barely enjoyed it myself. Also, living in Bombay in itself lends, I didn't have space to enjoy the magnanimity of the collection. So when, like Lekha, people started coming home. If there is an AD fair or now India Art Fair, Art Mumbai, sorry, Art Mumbai, I think people started coming and everyone expected, me to have a dinner or a lunch, and I just can't have anything in my house because the space doesn't allow it. So I said, why not? Last year I decided to open it up because I said, why not share it with everyone in a larger space which allows it, as well as first for me it was the whole reason why I open it up is actually for me to see it, then for the preservation and conservation of the collection, and third is for opening it up to the larger public. I also feel I personally learned a lot from viewing others' collections. Lekha, one of them, Rajiv Savara, there is Kavita Singh, Anurag Khanna, who's a fantastic collector sitting in Gujarat, who buys such amazing contemporary Indian art, and with literally, like, unlike all of us, he barely even gets out of his home. I mean, he travels for fairs. I mean, he travels to see art, but not as much. But still, his collection is fantastic. And I think when collectors like them have invited me to their homes, open up their homes, shown me works so patiently, and explain things to me, I felt I should also do the little bit I have, I should also do the same when I can, and while I have the energy to do it more than anything else. I don't know.
You
She is
will
a
have a lot of
superhuman.
energy for a
She
long
is a
time.
superhuman. I don't have that kind of energy.
Well, both these ladies are very special. So I want to go to the textiles, the idea of textiles. And in the 90s, India had the festivals of India, which you all are aware of. Mrs. Gandhi had come back into power, and she wanted to use her time in the government to do something where she showcased India. So Popul Jaikar and she got together to decide that they would use all the crafts, the textiles, and the art of India and take it around the world. So this became the Festivals of India, and they had a lot of curators. Popul Jaikar headed this entire exercise, and there was this big textile revival. So I'm telling you about this because a lot of Lekha's very recent textile exhibitions that Mayank has curated are all very high quality textiles. And to understand the quality of these textiles and understand the vast heritage that we have in India, I like Lekha to tell us how she actually started these collections. I mean, we're very lucky we live in India and we have this heritage that no other country has. I mean, every other country has two and three crafts, and we are so lucky that we live with this and breathe and eat and sleep with it all the time. So, tell us a little bit about how the classical became the contemporary and how you basically.
So as you said, there were festivals of India that were organized between 1982 and 1992, and textile, of course, was a part of the whole exercise, beyond the crafts and many other things. So in the first exercise that was done in the 1982s was reviving the textiles to techniques that were available to be seen in the earlier textile that we had, literally getting it back to museum standard, because the whole textile industry had deteriorated. There was no patronage, and what we saw was really very, very ordinary quality stuff. Um, the 19 and so after the and the 1990s, after having established the the quality of the textiles, which were done through the weaver service centers in India, and the weaver service centers were fortunately established in 1956. So weavers would come there, they would be working there. They would have master craftsmen come there and teach them, and the revival project was done through revival, and the contemporary projects were all done through weaver service centers. The second phase, after stabilizing the quality of the textiles to us to certainly very fine quality, the project then was how to contemporize this. And in the 1990s, the attempt was made to use the traditional techniques to make contemporary textiles. I don't know, maybe you will be able to see that on the screen or something. And we were very fortunate that in Delhi, there were two exhibitions that happened of Festivals of India. And in this exhibition, the vendors, sorry, the train's making so much noise. The vendors were also allowed to come. Well, the vendors were actually the sellers of the textiles. And we were fortunate to meet all these wonderful weavers and craftspeople and everyone. We could buy on the spot if we found something exciting. If we could not get what we liked, we had the privilege of ordering from the same weavers. So it was an amazing exercise that I think was done. And this kind of somehow.
Tell us a little bit about your fabulous exhibition, the path-breaking exhibition, Fracture. I don't know how many of you saw it, but one of the first exhibitions where these techniques were converted into contemporary works of art was a show called Fracture. I went back to see it twice, and I still have pictures of Fracture that I look at very often. And it was a path-breaking exhibition because it had these 20 odd, she'll tell you about it, but it had this absolutely fantastic collection of works that were all techniques that were available in India and that were translated to contemporary works of art, which they showed at this beautiful building that was Ranjan's office. And so, Lekha, tell us about it. I don't want to now. I'm not taking away your story.
Um, in 2013, I mean, we had already done a couple of exhibitions by this at the Devi Art Foundation. In 2013, we thought that we could now move on to another medium. Um, Post Festivals of India, there was no innovation in textiles anymore. So we thought that we would make an attempt to use traditional Indian techniques and get the practitioners to make contemporary textile art. They could not make do with fashion or anything like that. They had to really work on it as making it into textile art. Mayank was one of the curators. There was Rahul Jain, who was a curator, Mayank, and Sanjay Garg. We made an open call for people to apply uh, to make for the textile exhibition, and the people who applied did not necessarily come from a textile background, but they were interested in experimenting, and the intense curatorial exercise that was done between the three curators, because Rahul Jain was a scholar, Mayank was the designer, and the practitioner was Sanjay Garg. And they facilitated the making of Fracture, which we then exhibited in 2015.
Lovely. It was a beautiful exhibition, and I think they've also got a catalog for the show, which sometimes you must get hold of.
So you can see it on our website, which is www.deviartfoundation.org.
Okay, so they've got display shots.
Everything. The
because
whole catalog is there.
because it was just beautifully done.
Yeah.
So I think, Lekha, you've told us what your collecting philosophy is. Saloni, what are your influences and what's your philosophy when you collect works? Um, you know, either works that are textile based or the other works.
So I didn't particularly have any philosophy, but I think I definitely have a lot of influences. By the time I started collecting, there were already a lot of fakes in the market. So I decided very early on to buy art of my times, to buy young contemporary artists who grow with me, preferably my age or older, but people I know. Um, I would visit galleries frequently across India, expose myself to art by going to fairs, biennales, the Documenta in Castle. Oh, that was a journey. I think I met you
Yeah,
there.
we all
Yeah.
we were there together. Yeah.
And I think when you do that, you get influenced by so many trends and things that happen internationally. You're also influenced by things you see here, and I, I just decided to have a contemporary art what you call contemporary today. I mean, what is modern for us was contemporary for Lekha. So I think every modern is a contemporary, and I think I decided that very early on that I should grow with my collection.
So, who have been your mentors when it comes to textiles? Lekha, you want to take that question?
Of course, Martan Singh was my greatest mentor for textiles. Uh, Rahul Jain after that, because Martan Singh was, of course, involved with the festivals of India for about 10 years. So he had done the revival project, and he had also done the contemporary projects for the festivals of India. Uh, Rahul Jain is a scholar practitioner, if I may say so, because what he has done for the revival of 17th century brocade and Ottoman silks and Ottoman velvets in India, using 5 looms in Varanasi, uh, is just totally breathtaking. And I don't think anybody in the world can match that. And last but not the least is my dear friend who's sitting here, Mayank Mansin Kaul, who's constantly teaching me yesterday he had some fantastic images on his phone, which I was dying to know more about, which I will in due course of time. Yeah, so it's a journey, and we continue this journey, and every day we learn something. That's what I feel.
Saloni?
So in my case, there were influences. First is my grandfather, I guess, because as a very young child, growing up in Bombay, between Bombay and Delhi, but Bombay, I was born here. We owned textile mills, and we were into dyeing, spinning, and weaving. Artificial. We used to make silk, taffeta silk, and at a young age, I saw swatches of these silk cloth that we made lying in our house all the time, and we had a lot of business with Japan. So, and also my grandfather, being a freedom fighter with Netaji, wore khadi for the last 25 years of his life. So that also came in my vocabulary, silk, khadi, all this came in my vocabulary at a very young age. After that, I realized when I actually put together the saris for the show, and there are many more, is when that my mother's love for saris came in me, because coming from Calcutta, she wore a lot of Tangail, Jamdani in the day, Kota, and many others. And then in the evenings, she would wear South silks. So I whenever I would travel anywhere for a wedding, or go to the south or any part of India, she would always say, bring this back for me, which led me to go to the store, buy something for her, and in the process, understand the weave myself. She would say, get this border, get this booty, get this motif. So I think those were small things that added to me liking textiles. I'm not i'm not a textile collector, I'm just a collector. Textile just happens to be the show of mine. I've bought everything. Otherwise, I'm not obsessed with medium. For me, it's the language or the message. So, and then other influences. These were, subconscious influences in my life. But I think directly for me, the first time and amongst the last few times that I've seen textile in a big way is Lekha. Not only going to her house, which is a testimony of love that she has for textiles, because she actually hangs everything. And I don't know what this slide is showing, but I've happened to see such beautiful works of textiles, the Chamba Rumal, or even old fulkaris hung like that. And first you never knew that you can hang something like that on the wall. You didn't know that you could actually just cut up a material or actually buy something like that, any brocade. But when you saw it in her house, and when I used to go to Kavita Singh's house, she would show me a rare mochi kam lehenga. Then what was that Hyderabadi thing I told you? Khada dupatta, which I didn't know about. Then there was her entire extensive collection of pichwais, the Deccan pichwai, what she calls the net pichwai, but which is the lace pichwai, or brocade pichwai. So these things came into my vocabulary after I started seeing collectors acquiring them. And I think when you see that, it sort of gives you the confidence that you can also acquire it. May not necessarily buy everything, but even something that you have, which we've shown in this room. There is a whole motikam work of my mother's that we've put in one of the rooms, and these kachi cholis that I have acquired over the years, and so my mother has passed them on to me. So I didn't know that that can become a work of art. I learned that from them.
So, what do you think are some of the developments in Indian contemporary textiles and contemporary artists using textiles and fiber in their work? What do you think uh, is happening?
I don't know.
Lekha?
I think the whole world is exploding with textile art.
Absolutely.
It's quite amazing that everywhere you go, there are exhibitions of what they call art, but using textiles in some form. And I, I, I think even in India, a lot is happening. A lot of people are working with regional. How would I mean? Not only just craftspeople, but weavers and even the traditions. I mean, it's not just the weaving and crafts, but it's also their own traditions, the revival of their own traditions and things like that. Fashion in India is also becoming slightly conscious. Uh, People are using traditional techniques and making it into contemporary fashion. The labels like Pero 11 by 11, use traditional techniques to bring it to fashion. Uh, Recycling of textiles is happening and becoming fashion. Yeah, I think the younger generation is sort of is becoming conscious of the fact that, we would have an ecological disaster if we don't start to recycle some of the stuff that we can really do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are recognizing the
I
crafts.
think we're losing power in the handloom sector. There's power in power looms. So I feel, I mean, that's why today the theme was for the evening hand woven. Hand woven, handmade. I mean, today they're becoming trendy words, also expensive garments. But I think it is very important to understand the difference between the two, because if we do not support it, then like Lekha said, they will just diminish. So I think one of the things that's happening is, while textile has come in vogue in the art world, every international fair, biennale, the Venice Biennale itself had, I don't know if there were 200 works or 500 works. Out of the 500, 300 were textile based works or textile works, and using various forms of textiles, techniques, textile based art. So I feel like it's important to, I mean, two, three things. While this is important, I think it's also important to support, our own weavers. The more we buy handloom, the more we support this, the more the handloom sector works. Otherwise, the power looms have taken over. I also feel that, um, you know, the first thing, the starting of this whole thing was not only the Chanakya show, which they did with Dior, but also the fact that we had the whole India and Fashion at the NMACC, which is, Indian embroidery houses given importance. I mean, we don't consider them embroidery houses, we don't commission much from them, but all the international designers, whether it's Dior or Valentino or
Have
Chanel,
supported them.
are all coming to India for years, decades, more like, I don't even know if it's a century, but definitely at least 70, 80 years, and buying things from, commissioning works from our embroidery homes and going back there. So I think India in Fashion was a testimony to that, which happened at the NMACC at the opening show. And I think shows like this and movements like this are important for the youth to understand, because
Yes.
everyone understands fashion first
Yes.
and textile later.
Yes, I know. And actually, when you look at artists who've used textiles, I mean, there were artists working all along, and textiles were always part of India's tradition. And when you look at contemporary textiles and you look at people like Nelly Setna, people like Monica Correa, people like Rajan, all these people were artists who were showing in the 80s, but, have seemed to have just faded away and been forgotten. Like, till I think now people have started reviving the shows. Nancy's here, and she did a show of Nelly's work, and it's very nice to see all of this coming back. So, how do you see textile art evolving over the next decade or so, and what do you think the opportunities are, and where do you see the challenges?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are plenty of opportunities, and I do think that textile. Uh, I'm not saying that of course, the textile industry, which is a completely different thing, but handloom sector, as Saloni just mentioned, that really has to be nurtured. There are people who are taking that step, but they're very small steps. Uh, but also the quality of soil and water has changed over the past 25, 30 years. So we will not get what we got even 30 years ago. Uh, but I guess we have to live with what we have. And if this is nurtured properly, uh, I think we are the only country in the world who can produce the handcrafted textiles as it can be done.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So,
I also feel that, when I was, I mean, I've had exposure to, there are rarely any textile museums, like Lekha mentioned. She's learned a lot from the Crafts Museum. I learned a lot by going to Weavers Center, Calcutta, Dastkar exhibitions, Seva exhibitions in Delhi. Also seeing the Crafts Museum in Delhi. Then, to if you want to really understand textiles, you have to go to the Calico Museum in Ahmedabad, which is an ordeal because you can't take photographs. You have to book an appointment 3 months in advance at least. Fly a night before so you can spend the night because it's early in the morning, the visit. So I have gone there 3 4 times, and we don't have that kind of. We have a in the CSMVS we have a textile gallery, but there is no museum like the way they have, or the way Ahmedabad has. That kind of exposure we don't have in our city. So I think those are some of, I don't think it's a challenge, but I think it's one of the few things that one would like to see to understand our own
No, it is a
heritage.
challenge because how do you understand and see
See,
quality
yeah,
stuff? It is a
yeah.
challenge because where do you understand quality? Even for craftspeople, for them, it's handed down family to family, but where do they actually see the skill level of their grandparents? It's not so easy. So that whole archival thing is definitely the lack of archival thing is definitely a challenge. So Saloni, this question is to you. How do you think the medium affects the narrative of an artist? I mean, in contemporary art, how do you feel that textiles play a role in the contemporary art language?
If textiles weren't contemporary, we wouldn't be having the show. And I feel like it's nice that, textiles intersect with several other medium, even in the show, whether it's wood or, canvas or other media. But for me, I personally have always felt that textile is just a medium. At the end of the day, it's what the message is and what you're trying to convey. It doesn't matter that, whether you convey it through textiles or you convey it through paper or convey it through canvas or wood. I just feel that the medium of textile for the longest time in my life, which is of 45 years, has always been considered a form of craft, which is why textiles are shown in the Crafts Museum in Delhi and not a textile museum. So I feel like it is only now in the last 5 years, maybe Mayank can throw light on the exact number, but it's only in the last 5 years that we've seen this explosion of textile based art, and now we're sort of dissecting into textile and fiber based art. But it has never been like that before. I remember when I told someone I bought one piece of work, and they're like, "Oh, but that's not art. That's craft." As if I was this is so if it doesn't fall in that category, but now it's accepted as an art form, and I think that's a huge
It is a
that's
big
yeah,
step.
it's a
It
very big
is.
step.
It is.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah,
see
but
that at the fair
I
also
do
tomorrow.
think that just all of us people who are in this world, who try to distinguish between the art and the craft. The art, if you call it but contemporary art, that has also enough of craft. I mean, today, which
Yeah.
whoever artist is
Yes.
producing anything, they are also working with hand or whatever their medium is,
Yes.
but it is also a craft. So the similar
Yes.
way, I mean, we make those distinctions. Like all the isms that we have in our art world have been created by us. The artist didn't create it.
What are some of the best exhibitions that you've seen, Lekha? And both of you, Saloni, I mean, both of you have traveled a lot. So in India, in Europe, what of textiles and of
India,
textile?
where she and I start.
Well, I mean, to start with was the Festival of India exhibitions because I don't think we had seen some I mean, such fine textiles really even in shops or at homes. I mean, of course, if they were royal collections, we didn't have access to it. So that was really the first. But I think another exhibition which was really absolutely amazing was the Khadi exhibition, which was also done by Martan Singh in Delhi. And people were allowed to touch and feel the fabric. So he was telling me one day that a group of children from the blind school were brought to see the exhibition, and Bernard, who's sitting right here, is the one who made it possible, you know. And when these children came from the blind school, one child came up to him and turned around and said, this cloth which just went past on my hand was like air. And hello, yeah. So he turned around and said, there's nothing more that I can do with textiles because uh, if you really feel that this is air touching your body, there's nothing more that we can really achieve uh, with this form of textile. So that was really quite something, and it was a beautiful show. There are many people who are sitting here who've seen it, and they can comment on it also.
Saloni?
I think for me, the first textile show I've ever seen is at the Devi Art Foundation, and that was Fracture. It had a deep, moving effect on all of us.
Well, it was a path-breaking
Yeah,
show.
it was a very nice show. And subsequently, Devi has done, I always say first I'm friends with Devi Art Foundation and then with Lekha. because, so I think subsequently in the last, how many? Five, pre-pandemic 4 and now 3 post-pandemic. 7 shows. But last few years,
All in all, there have been just about
7, yeah, that's what I said, 4 and 3. So I think those have all been very educational because they all are on different parts of different kinds of textiles. I think also I feel a show that I can't forget is the Tapi Collection show, which was on trade textiles, and I'm just going to read out the title. When Indian flowers bloomed in distant lands, masterworks of trade textile, 13th century to 19th century, and that happened at the CSMVS, and I think that was for the first time that I discovered that India was such an important trading country where most of our trade came from. I mean, we traded cotton, so we gave batik to Indonesia, we gave the chins to the Europeans, we traded so much cotton externally, and of course got golden returns. So Lekha will elaborate on that, but I also understood what it meant to what trade textiles mean, because this is not a collection like this or like hers. This is a collection which was bought in from international markets of in of
Things
Indian
that
origin
originated in India.
and brought back into the country. So I think that was really something. And yeah, I think it was Sutra Santati as well. Sutra Santati was another fantastic show that happened last year. I think that was a good show in terms of the levels at which it educated us. I think the 4 floors, took us through the various weaver studios. They gave actually the names of every single weaver in the studio, the embroidery houses, and the various designers that work with these embroidery houses and weaver studios. I think that was educational, and the fact that they brought in contemporary art on the last floor. So I think Lavina is that show. She's not coming today, but she's coming tomorrow, and I think that was a very educational show as well.
So, this is my last question. What is it to live with textiles, and what advice would you give to young collectors?
playing what merry-go-round kind of a thing. Living with textiles is really not very difficult because yes, you do an exhibition, you stretch them, or you hang them, whatever way you have to display them, it's done. But at the end of the day, you can take them off the stretcher, you can fold them, you have to roll them, not fold them, and store them in a trunk. So it's quite easy to really look after textiles. Of course, they can't be exposed to light for a long time. But if you take care of that, then it's a very easy medium to look after.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, it's the lightest show I've ever had after photography because you can fold it, you can keep it, you can take it out of the stretcher. So easy to store, unlike other works of art. Yeah.
So,
And it definitely doesn't have other
advice to collectors.
advice to collectors. Lekha starts first.
But be curious. I think curiosity is the mother of all invention. And if you're curious, you will look around. And I think if you look around, you learn. And if you learn, then you get confident. And then slowly that practice continues. You buy something which you might not be sort of sure whether you can still hang it on your wall or not. But because you like it, they decided that they don't like me. Enough.
No, we're coming to an end. So,
No, that's okay.
Saloni, yeah.
I think
Before we ask
yeah,
the question.
I think like Lekha, I agree because she's curious, because she has the energy and she always wants to see and learn. I think you have to have that to be a collector. You have to be a sponge and you should be open to learning. But besides that, I feel there are a lot of things I would like young people to know, which is like, ignore the medium, try and understand the message that a work of art is, conveying to you. I feel also buy artists young and watch them grow. You know, buy art that fits your pocket, uh, and um, yeah, I mean, I think the more you see, the more you travel to see, which I did, and I feel like the more you research, something that today, the internet is available. Earlier, we didn't have that choice. I think the more you have do that, you learn about things, and I think that curiosity to want to know should be there. Yeah,
And you buy with your heart.
and you buy with your heart.
Yeah. So thank you, ladies. That was a lovely, lovely conversation. Can we take any questions from the audience? I'm sure all of you want to know many things of what they've hidden inside their cupboards, so you can ask. Maya, Konal,
Sharan, you've been collecting textiles and supporting textiles for 40 years. Tell us a little about your journey.
I agree. She's a curator because I love her aesthetic and I have connected with her on textiles for so many years that I couldn't think of anyone. I think I am flattered that she thought she wanted to curate this show.
No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it and I learned a lot from you, Saloni. Well, I've collected textiles. I think, I don't know, maybe like Saloni, it's been part of my life and I've been sensitive to textiles and I've always bought things and I like to wear them. Okay? Whatever it is for me, even the art I like to live with and just, for me wearing it is very important.
Sharan is wearing one of the most beautiful Andhra ikats.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've enjoyed it, Mayank. And yes, my journey has been a long and hard one, but it's nice to be here to realize that other people appreciate it too. We started the Yarn Club where we were doing these talks, and I was very, very selfishly organizing talks of people that I wanted to hear. And so I got to learn a lot from over the years when I had people come and talk for us. And in fact, we need to put those on YouTube at some point. Any other question? Yes. Yes. Yes, Meera Mehta has been collecting and supporting textiles for a long time, so tell us.
No, I haven't been collecting. I make them. And my desire is
Yes, I bought a sari from you long ago, many years
so
ago.
it's only the desire to
Just
make.
closer, please.
Mine is only a desire to make the thing which I think I have not seen it before, or I can't get it, or I won't get it, and that is where I go. So my path is that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Ravi. I'm a friend of Saloni and she's kindly invited me here. I'm just interested that the past is beautiful in textiles. How is the future looking with so much of awareness coming and where is it moving in direction, especially in this country?
It looks like it's moving ahead.
It's moving ahead. And more than that, anything else?
In some very small pockets.
It's very interesting to see how many people are involving themselves in textiles and how many people are looking at, there are problems of the artisans not having the right kind of remuneration because they're all leaving their jobs to get computer jobs and blah blah all that, and so there are people looking to see how they can be, how their incomes can be augmented to want them to stay in it and also build that pride for them. So recently I met one of the Nobel Prize winners, Abhijit Banerjee, who has taken up a project from one of the clusters, the Jamdani clusters in West Bengal. And I was very curious because, he has worked with poverty, so he got the prize for that. So he went on to tell us how he got involved with the project. So it's amazing how many little pockets people are working in and how many people are actually trying, because I think people like us are all aware that there is something very precious that we should not lose and we have to hold on to it.
My question is largely for Saloni. Do you also, what I didn't find, I could be wrong, when he stitched garments, do you consider looking at that as collectible art as well, contemporary stitched garments, or is it mostly the unstitched?
I think Lekha can answer this better than me because I know it's not. Well, I personally don't. I think stitch garments for me is what I wear.
That's the question. I mean,
Yeah,
if you can wear it, it's not.
You
What is
can't show
the?
it. Not for this show.
Yeah, I think stitched garments, wearing works of art
You know,
is very important.
Yeah, wearing works. So we try to do that, but not in the form of stitches. I've tried to put the saris, and I think I had to end there because there was no room space for more than that. But maybe you need a larger space, and I think I don't know if I have the collection necessarily, but I don't think there's anything wrong in putting stitch garments. Like India and Fashion was a show that took that forward, and I thought it was fantastic.
Even
But-
the DNA did that show.
Yeah,
with
VNA
China.
internationally there have been many shows. Yeah.
And also there are many artists. When you look at people like Smriti Dixit and all, they are making things which are wearable but which are sculptures too. There's no I think like Lekha said, the mics are protesting. We've talked for too long. So I think we should end this evening. Thank you very much. Saloni has given me a list of people that I have to thank. And we all have gone to Mayank many times during this exhibition. So thank you, Mayank.
Like every second call.
Every
And
second.
all three of us don't know we're calling you.
Yeah.
And we find out at the end of this that we've called you independently for every single decision that is made on the show.
Yes, and we'd like to thank Monish Dayal for this beautiful pamphlet design, Shivaji Rao Gaikwad of Moya and Shadon for the Bubbly Tonight, Ravi Mariwala for curating the sound from his infamous jazz collection, and Miti Junjunwala of EO for partnering with us for this evening. So thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for being here and coming to this evening and enjoying the show.